All eyes were on a Fairfax, Virginia courtroom Monday as actor Johnny Depp was expected to take the stand in his $50 million defamation suit against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. But in a midday update, Heard's team said they would not be calling on Depp. Instead, the day began with expert testimony, first from an orthopedic surgeon who tried to cast doubt about how Depp's finger was severed in 2015.
Dr. Moore, based on your analysis, did Mr. Depp's finger injury happen as a result of a vodka bottle being thrown at him?
No.
Depp is accusing Heard of throwing that vodka bottle at him. However, the surgeon testifying for Heard's defense says Depp's allegations and the photos of his injury don't add up.
To create the type of injury with that type of a crush injury, we would anticipate both injury to the fingernail and other parts of the finger.
On cross-examination, Depp's lawyer tried to undermine that assessment, saying the surgeon had never treated or examined the actor's hand in person. Additionally, Heard's team brought in a psychiatrist who also did not treat Depp, but reviewed the case.
So, in my opinion, Mr. Depp has behaviors that are consistent with both someone who has a substance use disorder as well as consistent behaviors for someone who is a perpetrator of intimate partner violence.
Depp's team has indicated his ex-girlfriend Kate Moss could be called to the stand as a rebuttal witness on Wednesday. Heard brought up Moss during her testimony, referencing a rumor that Depp once pushed the model down a flight of stairs. In Fairfax, Virginia, Matla Rivera, Fox News.
So really one of the biggest developments today, the fact that Amber Heard's team is not planning on bringing Johnny Depp back to the stand. That was a last-minute decision. I want to bring in legal analyst Julie Rendelman to talk a little bit more about this. First, though, Julie, I want to read this off. A source close to Amber Heard told our Fox 5 team, quote, "Calling Depp back to the stand would be as relevant to us as a bicycle to a fish. Everything Depp has testified up to this point has been irrelevant to the heart of this case, and there's no reason to believe it would be any different now." Do you think they made the right decision?
Yeah, I've never heard the phrase "bicycle to a fish." That was a new one to me, and it was interesting, and it's funny because I mean, if you remember, Amber Heard in the middle of the trial switched PR firms because she didn't feel like she was getting the support she needed, and this seems to be, quote unquote, the support she's trying to get in terms of trying to make some excuse as to why they're now not calling Johnny Depp. And so to me, here's the problem for Heard's team is that Johnny Depp did a very good job on direct and cross-examination. And I don't think they want the jury to hear from him again. He's very charming. Whether you believe him or not, there is a likability about him that is hard to ignore. And I don't think, and I think they're right to understand this, that at this point they have anything to gain by putting him back on the stand and letting him continue, you know, in terms of anything he would have to add to this.
Okay, so Johnny Depp is not going to be taking the stand, but Kate Moss, his ex-girlfriend, model girlfriend, might be on Wednesday. Very much could. What can we expect from her, you think?
So this is a big one for, I think, Johnny Depp's team. If you remember that Kate Moss originally wasn't allowed to testify because it really wasn't relevant. It was a separate event, had nothing to do with this. And if you remember, Amber Heard took the stand, and I think it was either direct or cross-examination, brought out herself the issue regarding Kate Moss and some rumor regarding Johnny Depp having pushed her in some way down the stairs. And many people commented on the fact that Johnny Depp was smiling ear to ear, I think maybe fist bumping one of his attorneys, because they realized at that moment they would have the opportunity for Kate Moss now to take the stand and refute what that allegation was. And so I don't think this is a good thing for Amber Heard. And the reason is not just because it brings into question Amber Heard's credibility if Kate Moss testifies as we think she will, but it also gives the jury the sense of what Johnny Depp was like in a different relationship. And if Kate Moss gets up there and says, he was never violent, he was never angry, he never pushed me, that also can impact the jury in determining whether or not Amber Heard is credible when she made all these allegations of domestic violence against him.
Yeah, I think Johnny Depp's attorney really going viral on Twitter because he did a little fist pump. He was that excited that she was going to be called to the stand.
Oh, yeah, I think it was a huge victory for them. I think they knew it. By the way, I think that Amber Heard's team knew it. And once the cat is out of the bag and the door is open, and by the way, she opened it pretty wide.
Right.
The judge had no choice but to let her take the stand.
Well, let's talk expert testimony, because we had this entertainment consultant, Catherine Arnold, who took the stand and talk about the actual defamation aspect of this case. She said that Amber Heard lost more than $45 million after this alleged smear campaign, which we have spoken about in the past. Is this all just kind of rehashing the same points, or do you feel like some of this might be sticking with the jury?
You're taking the words out of my mouth, because I said the exact same thing when she started testifying. I was like, didn't we hear all this before?
Yeah.
And she did fine on direct. I think the big thing was cross-examination. This was an expert who basically compared Amber Heard's trajectory in terms of her career to Jason Momoa. And by the way, many other actors of his caliber, I think Gal Gadot, there were several other people mentioned. And then on cross-examination, when she was asked to basically explain what their career looked like, the big roles they had played, she actually didn't know what those roles were. And that really did not bode well. As far as I'm concerned, if I was a juror, I would not, that really was a blow to her credibility. She seemed to have just a lack of information in regards to that. And that's the person they're basing the damages on, at least one of them. So I don't think she did too well for Amber Heard's team.
So we had a couple of other people take the stand, including this orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Richard Moore. He was talking about Depp and his injured finger, but really the one who I think people couldn't keep their eyes off of was this Dr. David Spiegel. He's a physician, psychiatrist, taking the stand, and he really was kind of combative with Johnny Depp's legal team. What did you make of that back and forth? We're going to show him in just a minute here on this video.
Yeah, he did stand out a bit more. The orthopedic surgeon, I think, did a good job on cross-examination. She definitely hit some very good points, but I think this other witness stood out just because there really was a lot of fire between him and yeah, there he is.
Mm-hmm.
And there were questions raised about ethics, whether or not it's appropriate for a doctor to testify when they've never, ever spoken to, interviewed in any way the subject matter, which is Johnny Depp. He did try to hold his own, but I'm not sure. I didn't find him, I don't think this was a day scored for Amber Heard's team. I did not find him incredibly effective. Even his mannerisms, I think that he kind of threw the, I didn't find him to be as professional as many that we've seen testify, and so the combativeness I don't think worked and inured to her benefit.
Yeah, made for yet another good highlight of this trial that is capturing the nation's attention. Well, things are kind of moving along here, Julie. What do you think the timeline of this is going to be? When could we eventually hear a verdict?
So I don't know that we'll ever hear a verdict, but I mean, the interesting thing, as you know, is the judge has set hours for each side, and I know as of a few days ago it was 18 hours for Johnny Depp's side. Amber Heard had much less. I think Johnny Depp's team is going to run the clock. They're going to try to get in as much as possible for the jury to hear. My guess is they want it to summations I thought was supposed to be May 31st. And I think the judge has really tried to stick to her guns in regards to this and has really kept the case going, even though it's taken quite a while. And so my guess is you're probably going to start to hear summations then. As to when and if a verdict comes back, I have no idea. There's so much evidence. I don't know what the jury's going to want to hear from, if they want to hear, readbacks or what. That's going to be anyone's guess.
Yep, anyone's guess what can come out of this trial. Any last thoughts, Julie?
No, I think I, along with many people I know that you work with, are very excited if Kate Moss takes the stand. I used to think she was just an amazing model. I'm interested to see, what she has to say. I think she's going to be incredibly supportive of Johnny Depp, to the lengths of which Amber Heard's team is not going to be happy and may have some problems cross-examining her.
Yep. That'll be something to watch. Hopefully she does end up taking the stand and it's not overturned like we all thought Elon Musk and James Franco were going to be taking the stand, and they did not. So anything can happen here. Legal analyst Julie Rendelman, thanks for being with us here on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.